Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by Husky Harry, huggable homos who love film, to dish up some movie reviews on films either current or classic. This week, we are not going with the or in that tagline. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going with an and, because we are reviewing movies both current and classic. We're going to be talking about Child's Play, one of our favorite demonic possessed toy movies to get the bad taste of Annabelle creation out of our mouths. And we're going to be talking about Logan Lucky as well. Yeah, Jim, you hadn't seen it before. We'll have to see. But we'll also be discussing Logan Lucky as well to fulfill our current movie requirement. But hey, before we do all of that, let me introduce you to my wonderful co-hosts. Jim Pugliafico, my husband, and one of my favorite people on the face of the planet is here with us. Welcome, babe, to the show.
Hi. Thanks, babe, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And please welcome Kira as well.
Oh
Kira, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everybody.
She's pretty crazy.
Kira,
you know that thing where the cats do when as soon as you sit down to actually do something productive, they just decide to lay right across your keyboard or your hands or whatever. She's doing. Is
she still on the desk? I saw her for a second.
She's right here on the desk. I'm keeping her away from my hands, but
you should pick her up and put her on camera. And since in our head she sounds like a spunky Latina soccer player, you should say hi in her voice.
Hey, Kira. Say hi. Meow, meow, meow.
That'll count. We'll go with that. And Will, I'm sure we're going to hear from the dogs at some point. Maybe you can pop one of them up for us when they pop in. But welcome, Will Lindis, one of the most amazing and super knowledgeable movie people on the face of the planet. Will, glad to have you here.
So good to be here for one of our and episodes. I love when we talk about new movies because new movies are super cool. But man, I love it when we talk about old movies too. So hell yeah, I'm all aboard today.
I'm glad to hear that. I felt a little weird though, like when I was like writing the episode description for YouTube, and I'm like, we're reviewing a classic movie, Child's Play from the 80s. And I'm like, wait a second, 80s movies are now considered classic?
Absolutely. Yeah, they are.
It's weird, like, and I think this happens to probably a lot of people at a certain point in their lives. You know, I think, Brad, you and I are probably going through it. Everyone will go through this or has gone through this at some point where the things that you remember growing up with are now like the classic things. Like there's oldie stations, like classic rock stations are playing stuff that I remember from my lifetime. And when I was a kid, classic rock was always like, oh, that's that old stuff that other people listen to. So that's just the way things go, you know, sunrise, sunset, but still, like, it's such a weird feeling.
Well, when classic rock stations start playing like Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins, I'm out. I'm just out.
It's happening. Yeah, that happens right now. There's a classic rock station I listen to on Sirius, and then I'll hear like a Pumpkin song, and it's going all the way back to. It's like, oh god.
Well, I got news for you guys. You know, once the first couple times you experience that, like, oh my God, I'm feeling old because some of the songs I grew up with are now called classic or on oldie stations. Once you start experiencing that, it doesn't stop. It just keeps happening, right? Because it's either that or it's someone who's like maybe like a contemporary celebrity that you kind of grew up watching might pass away, or you see their age come up on something that they're doing, and you're like, oh my God, that person looks old. Oh yeah, I guess we all are kind of old, but it just keeps happening. Like I still experience that, like today.
It's even worse, like on and I know you guys watch reality TV. We all do. Like, that's something we've talked about on the show quite a bit. But they tend to cast very young for these shows. And we're getting to the point where, like, okay, so there's this current season of Big Brother is on, and when you just look at the cast, save for like the one
guy,
there's one guy who's always like,
good old Kevin.
Yeah, well, in every season, there's always that guy, you know, like who's like 20 or 30 years older than the rest of the cast. But right now, we're at the point where the other people who are like, oh, they're also getting on there in years are younger than me. And that is such a bizarre feeling. Like, there's kids who we're getting to the point where there's people who are on these shows who are out there doing things who were born the year I graduated high school. And I know that's like, there's probably people who are older than me listening going like, yeah, this guy needs to shut the fuck up. You know, we've all gone through this, but I don't know if you're in the same boat, Brad, but like, I do get to those points every so often where I'm aware of the fact that I'm no longer a young man, more and more and more.
It is what it is at this point. I'll just put on my old man glasses and just accept it, I guess.
But classic movies never, like, I could still watch classic movies and still love them. You know what I mean? So they never really, like, I don't know. They never really kind of fall out of my desire, I guess, to watch them. They're all, at least the good ones or the memorable ones, you know?
Classic movies never die. They just fade away from your memory, and they go into the memory dump from inside out and become these smoky gray orbs that have no life, and you cry about them.
Or they become franchises and they start to bastardize themselves by the time they get to their 18th sequel. That's the other thing classic movies
We're going to talk about that tonight, I think.
I think we might.
Oh, goodness. Well, hey, we're excited to talk about both Child's Play and Logan Lucky. But before we get to that, you may remember last week, we had the wonderful, we had the phenomenal, we had the amazing writer-director Doug Langway from BearCity 3 on the show. And we promised that anyone who participated in the live chat, said hello, popped in and said hi, would be entered into a drawing for a free copy of BearCity 3. Jim, we have 2 copies to give away. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, we have 2 copies to give away. That's correct.
All right. Awesome. Well, guess what? We have come to that time, ladies and gentlemen, where we are going to draw some names out of the hat and see who wins those 2 copies of BearCity 3. Jim, as the holder of our Nebraska prize winner hat, take a look at that. I love that hat. Jim, I'm gonna hand the reins over to you.
I'm gonna shake it up.
Are the names in there?
The names are in the hat. So I'm shaking it up right now.
This is chaos. Jim is going off book. He's going crazy with this. I love it.
Hey, I'm okay with chaos. You know why?
Why?
Because chaos is a ladder.
They're in there. See, I don't know if you can see them, but they're.
We see them.
I can totally see them. Yeah.
All right, so, Jim, it's all you, boo, as the millennials say.
I'm gonna pull 2 names out of here, unless Kira's already stolen them out of here.
We apologize to anyone whose name has been stolen by Kira the cat.
All right, I have one. Okay, and the first winner is Nuriko455, otherwise known as Ron Phillips.
Oh, awesome!
Friend of the show, Ron
nice.
Phillips. Yes.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Ron. Ron, if you are listening, we'll reach out on Facebook too, because we're buds. But definitely get us your address so that we can drop your copy of BC3 in the mail for you. Jim, who's our next lucky winner?
Let's see. You're down to like a very good chance of winning here.
Drum roll.
My head. I have it right here. It is Bobby Miller. Bobby Miller.
Hey, nice.
Bobby Miller wins.
Oh.
You know, that's kind of awesome because I remember in the chat last week, he was like, I haven't seen any of the BearCity movies. And now, you know, he said he was going to go back and check out the first couple because they're available for streaming at BearCity.com. So, Bobby Miller, now you don't have to rent the third one, although the third one is available for rent or purchase on BearCity.com. Now we have a physical copy that's going to come your way. So, Bobby, if you're listening, and we'll reach out to you as well because we're also Facebook buds, just make sure and get us your physical address, and we will get that in the mail for you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys. And also thank you for contributing so much. The live chat is such a fun part of the show for us. And so thank you for contributing. Congratulations on your win.
Yeah, And Will, that's a great point about the live chat, because I tell you, as much as I love talking with you and Jim, sometimes I get a ton out of the folks in the live chat. Sometimes it like scrolls so fast I can't even keep up sometimes.
Yeah.
But we adore you guys, and we love that you jump into the live chat, you hang out with us, and want to give a big shout out to those of you who are already in there and saying hello. Steve, hello and welcome. Bobby is here. Weeping Jay is here. We're getting the crew back together. Glad to see you guys. We love you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, those of you who are not in the live chat, A, why aren't you? But B, we love you too. Not to worry. We know a lot of folks access the show via iTunes and Stitcher Radio on digital tape delays. So you know what? We love you too. We're gonna have to figure out what to do.
Love to go around. Yeah,
we're gonna have to figure out something special to do for you guys who may not be able to listen live next time we have a contest or something. Our 5-year anniversary? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. 5 years coming up in December.
Holy shit. Wow. 5 years. Crazy. Mm-hmm. Well, you can bet we're going to have some awesome stuff going on then. So maybe if we don't get to you guys before, we'll have.
We're going to make it rain with prizes. I don't know. We probably are. I don't know. Maybe make it rain, like setting a terrible expectation, but we'll have something.
Yeah.
It won't be as exciting as a solar eclipse, but.
Well, what is? Mm-hmm. I mean, today we beat the Fire Nation.
That's true. We took down the Fire Lord, yo.
Yeah, that's what happens during eclipses. That and killer plants.
Nasty Fire Lord.
Hey, Ryan Rivera is with us as well. Welcome, Ryan. Glad to have you. Boys, we have 2 movies to discuss. My goodness, Sally Draper. Are we ready to do it? Are we ready to dive in?
We are.
Yeah.
All right. So let me preface this before we officially set this up. For those of you who may be new listeners, A, welcome. Glad to have you aboard. And B, we're going to talk about both Child's Play and Logan Lucky spoiler free for probably 10 or 15 minutes. If you haven't seen either film, that's your chance. If you're interested in an outside opinion, or in this case, 3 of them, we'll give you our thoughts on the films and whether they're worth checking out or skipping. And then we'll give you fair warning before we take you to Spoiler Pound Town. And then you'll have notice to step away for a few minutes and then come on back. So glad to have you guys with us. All of that said, we're going to kick things off by trying to get the taste of Annabelle out of our mouths. That sounds so disgusting. Like we sucked on like a dusty doll arm or something. But
feels that way.
Worse.
Or worse. Oh, God, Jim. Anyway, here we go. Our discussion of Child's Play. All right. So, Will, I know this is a movie that you and I were very, very excited about the possibility of discussing when it kind of came up on the show last week. I thought it only fitting for you to maybe tell us about this film. Give us the quick and dirty setup. Not everybody may have seen it, of course, so we'll avoid spoilers. But is this a movie that people should check out? Obviously, it's not in theaters right now, though I hear it may be coming back for Halloween this year, which could be fun. But then, Will, give us your thoughts. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Child's Play is a 1988 horror film that's basically about this mother. She's a single mother, and her kid, he's like 5 or 6 years old, and he's obsessed with this television show called The Good Guy, the Good Guy dolls. And it's sort of like, if you guys remember like My Buddy from like back in the day, it's sort of like that. Well, they come out with this doll. And so the mother gets the doll for the child, and soon they discover that particular doll happens to be possessed with the soul and spirit of a serial killer. So this is probably the premier killer doll movie. If like when I think about killer doll movies, maybe there's some that I enjoy more for different reasons, but this one is the one that's sort of the most recognizable, the one that is sort of holds that marquee, right? And I love this movie. This movie is everything that it needed to be. It's a very brisk hour and 27 minutes, and I think that does a lot for it. I think this is a film that sort of could overstay its welcome the more and more you spend time in the world. sequels 4, 5, and 6 tell us that as well. The things that I love so much about this one was played for maybe the first half of the movie as a very straightforward film, with a lot more tension and a lot more just like kind of character building. Obviously, some like some murdery stuff is happening there, but it's very understated for a bit, just letting us be creeped out by this doll until like the adrenaline gets pumped in the last half and it goes crazy. This has some great voice acting too. We have Brad Dourif, who does the voice of Chucky in all of these. Chucky is the killer doll in this. He's the voice in all of them, and he's got the perfect voice. Like when I think about like the way that character sounds, it's so iconic. I can hear a snippet of Chucky saying one of his lines and be immediately transported to like this particular franchise. What's also cool about it, and this is maybe getting a little ahead of it, but like this movie has spawned a franchise that is based around one of the most recognizable slasher killers, like probably right up there with like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger. I would say in that similar tier, you could put like Chucky as one of like the most recognizable, like top 7 or so slasher killers. It spawned some really solid sequels. It moves into comedy horror at a certain point, as all of these franchises tend to do at a while. But I don't hold that against this film. I love this movie. And JP is in chat, and he was saying he was 6 years old when he saw this, and he had a My Buddy doll that looked exactly like him. I was also 6 when this came out. I also had a My Buddy doll, and that motherfucker went in the closet for a while until I could sort of like wrap my brain around the fact that I don't want this doll is not actually going to kill me. But there were a few moments where I was not quite sure. So yeah, I like this movie. I like it for its quirk. I like it for its horror. I like the fact that it gets in and gets out and does what it needs to do in a relatively short period of time. I love Child's Play.
All right. So big glowing recommendation for Will. Jim, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. I know we kind of like save our load up for the show, so we didn't really talk about it a lot after we watched it the other night. So I can't wait to hear what you think. Before we do that, though, I just wanted to give a couple shout outs. We've got JP. Will, you mentioned him. He joined us in the live chat. And JP, I had a similar thing happen with a doll as well. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Also, a big hello to a new friend, Adam, a very sexy bear visiting Tucson right now from San Francisco. He is checking out the show for the very first time, you guys. So please say hi to Adam.
Hi, Adam.
Hello, Adam.
Adam, glad to have you on board with us. Welcome.
Is he in the chat?
I don't know if he's in the live chat. Okay. I just got a Facebook message though saying that he was he was tuning in to listen. He said he wanted to listen in and see our cute faces. Nice. Adam, you have a cute face too. We love it, and a very, very sexy beard to go with it. Anyway, we'll stop gushing over Adam, our new listener, and Jim. I've come to the point where I think we're at like peak saturation to hear your thoughts on Child's Play. I'm a little afraid of what you're going to say. I'm a little excited by what you're going to say. So I'm feeling conflicted, and you know how I hate that, but take it away.
So, I mean, I was aware of the Chucky movies. They just weren't something that I saw when they were released. I don't know why. I don't know what I was into at the time. I was probably into freaking new wave Blondie music or something and didn't feel like going to horror movies. But I did sit down and watch it with Brad last weekend, and I kind of enjoyed it for what it was, which is really just a big old slice of like 80s cheesy horror movie with some pretty good special effects, especially toward the end. We'll talk about a little bit more in spoilers. Some pretty for me the stuff that I would consider scary stuff. Was kind of happened toward the end of the movie. Some really kind of disturbing things going on at the end. And I guess I would have liked to have seen this now back in the 80s, because as I see it now, and like some of the acting and the line deliveries and stuff are just so, and the premise itself is just so cheesy. You know, you have that 80s synth music kind of drizzled all over the place in there, that, you know, and then, so I wonder if it would have come across to me as like cheesy fun then as it does now. Because now it's just more a movie to kind of sit and kind of laugh at, and not really be like scared or tense, because we've seen so many of these movies, right? At the time, you know, this wasn't the first killer doll movie. There was, you know, Trilogy of Terror was the one that got me scared out of my wits back in '75. And there was Magic that was around the same time as this movie, I think, maybe a little bit before. And there was some really old, there's a couple of really old ones in there too. But I don't know, just the way the doll, like Chucky, gets to deliver certain lines in this movie, right? He gets to be kind of a wise ass killer, and kind of a taunting killer, if you will. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching this for what it was, and it was fun to watch it with you, Brad, because we could kind of joke back and forth about the stupid line delivery, about the stupid cops, like how they made the cops look in this movie. That's where, for me, where the comedy was. Like, these were the most inept detective and whatever, lieutenant detective, whatever, in the movie. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I would say if you're looking for a fun time with some friends, and you've seen the movie and you want to revisit it, or you haven't seen the movie yet, go back and watch it. I don't know if I would binge watch all of the Chucky movies, because there's like, I think there's 6 of them now. I think there's like 6 or 7 movies, and actually one is coming out like later this year on
Cult
DVD.
of Chucky. Yeah,
right to DVD. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know if I'd want to binge watch all of them, but the one that kicked it off was kind of fun.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it, because when we were watching the movie, there were certain points where I looked at you and you're just kind of like, I don't know. I could tell that like it was maybe a little too cheesy, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it overall. Just to give a shout out to something JP is saying in the chat. He says, there are killer doll movies going all the way back to the 40s, but Child's Play is really the first time the doll was a real character. Jim, I'm curious for you, or I'm curious as to whether you feel like that's true. Do you feel like Chucky was an actual like self-actualized like real character, or did you feel like he was more of just kind of like a throwaway like quippy kill? Like, what was your thought?
Yeah, I don't know. In this one movie, he's definitely more of a character than Annabelle was in this last movie, for sure. He had more agency than Annabelle. I don't think it's the first movie where the doll was as much of a character as Chucky was in this movie. If you go back to a movie called Devil Doll, I think from the 60s, maybe, I don't remember. That character was very much that doll was very much a character, had lines, had a kind of a personality, and kind of had a will, to carry out what he was going to do. But yeah, I mean, I saw him as much of a character as as more than recent doll movies, I will say, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I agree, and I think Jim, we went and watched Devil Doll after the first Annabelle spinoff movie.
We did, yeah. Remember seeing that? That was fun.
Yeah, I had forgotten about it until you brought it up. I'm like, what is it about the Annabelle movies that makes us want to go seek out like other creepy doll movies? And it's probably because they're terrible, and these other movies are, a lot better. Yeah, I mean, it's no secret for me. I love Child's Play. I think it's a really, I don't know that fun is the right word. Well, I guess it's kind of fun in like a dark way. Like, it's fun to be scared, and it's fun to go back and watch this again, because I've seen this movie, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times since it came out, and it's one of those that I don't go back to a lot, because every time I see it, I think like it loses some of its like charm a little, because the more and more we get away from that 80s sensibility, I think, you know what I mean?
The nostalgia, once you strip away the nostalgia filter, right? The more you watch it, the more the nostalgia filter kind of melts away, and you're seeing it for what it is. Yeah.
It's like the Vaseline is being wiped off the lens a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? But Steve in chat says, first time I saw this was at a birthday party sleepover. I'm pretty sure kids went home after the movie was over. Steve, I had a similar experience to you. So the first time I saw this movie, I was at my cousin's house, and he had another friend over, and it was just the three of us. We were like, playing video games. And then we watched this movie after my aunt went to bed. And we probably should not have watched this movie because I was freaked out, guys. In fact, I called my parents and crying to my mom on the phone. I wanted to come home because, Will, to your story earlier, my cousin had a My Buddy doll, and it was sitting in the corner. And like my aunt ended up having to like put it in the closet and like padlock the closet door before I would feel comfortable sleeping, because my parents were like, look, you're at your aunt's house an hour and a half away. Like, we're not going to come get you, So, Steve, I know how it goes. But yeah, this movie is great. I mean, I think that, I don't know, Catherine Hicks, who, she was in Star Trek 4 opposite Kirk, and she plays the mom in Seventh Heaven, if you've ever seen that show. It's just so funny to like go back and see her like in this horror slasher, like with this doll, like trying to stab her in the face, and she's like, oh no, like trying to throw it off, Brad Dourif, absolutely. I think he's phenomenal in this role. And
Prince Humperdinck. Don't forget Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Dourif really hams it up quite a bit in this Chucky role. And what's interesting is I didn't make the connection until we were watching it this last time, but Brad Dourif also plays a character on Star Trek Voyager that I really like. And this time around, I was like, oh my God, it's that character from Voyager, So that was kind of an interesting parallel. And yes, Prince Humperdinck from The Princess Bride is here as well. It's unfortunate that all of the sequels are as bad as they are. We'll see what happens with the new one coming out next month, but I think at least the first two were pretty good. 3 was kind of okay for me. Will, did you like the third one?
I will go on record as saying I kind of liked all 6 of them, but for very different reasons. But yeah, okay. For the reasons that you like them, I defend 3 as well. I think that it had some really cool scenes and was still more of a straightforward non-comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Once we start getting in like to the Bride of Chucky stuff, I mean, there's kind of a tonal shift there, but I think the first 3 movies, mostly the first 2, but the third as well, kind of maintain that. And I think they're worth checking out. I think they're worth seeing. Absolutely. It did make me though pull a really bad trick on my sister one time. Jim, I told you this story. Will, do you want to hear about it at all?
Oh, of course. Yes. No, these types of stories are what these types of movies like spawn the most strong memories of for me. So yes, please.
So at my grandma's house, my grandma was like a Christmas freak. She loved Christmas. So she had this, it's like this like plastic doll sort of version of like an elf. And around Christmas time, it would be like standing on a stool, like in her kitchen, like in the corner, just as a decorative thing, Anyway, my sister was a little creeped out by that doll after we watched Child's Play when she was probably too young to see it. But hey, she wanted to watch it. She's the one who popped the tape in the VCR, and I tried to tell her. So she got pretty freaked out. And so anyway, we were at my grandma's house like a week later, and there's that doll. It's creepy. And she's like, oh my God, that doll's going to come to life and like try to kill us. And I'm like, no, you silly 6-year-old. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So she goes into the bathroom, and I go and get that doll, and I stand it in the hallway outside the bathroom door and point its little hand up at her. And she opens the door to come out of the bathroom and jumps like 8 feet in the air. She screams. And then this is my sister. My sister's amazing. She takes a running approach to this elf and like kicks it in the fucking nuts, and it goes flying end over end into the wall, breaks its arm, breaks its head.
Oh.
Grandma was not happy. But you know, we glued it back together. It was fine. But yeah, what is it about this movie, I think, that makes us eternally afraid of dolls? Well, it's probably because Chucky looks so good and innocent, just like the elf looked so good and innocent. But it brings out the not so good and innocent. And
well,
it's
subversive too, in that, like, when you think about like a killer like Jason or Michael Myers, like, this is a person who comes into our house, and so there's certainly like the fear of like home invasion or fear of the woods, which are, you know, are legit sources of terror. But this comes from a fear that something already within my house that I don't suspect is a threat to me. And that's what's so terrifying about that, is it doesn't have to be a Chucky doll. It could be anything. Like, if this world is to be believed, like, what in my house is like gonna knife me when I sleep tonight? I used to work at a Spencer's when I was in college. Like, I was the night shift leader, and one of the things that we sold there was we sold life-size Chucky dolls. Like, they were the actual like size and dimensions of the ones in the movie. They like looked spot on. So one of my favorite things that we did to mess with the opening managers was, in the office leading back there, we had the Chucky doll standing there with a pair of scissors, just like right on the desk, right after the open door. And yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't there to see it, but the reaction was apparently quite explosive. But it's so much fun to fuck with people with these toys, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, and I was gonna say, and that's one thing that like this movie and the Chucky movies have over like these Annabelle movies. The main difference to me is that the Chucky doll, obviously, like you said, he's a character, yes, but he has agency. He's the actual killer. Like, whereas in the Annabelle movies, they kind of rely on the fact, oh, it's a creepy doll. The doll really doesn't do anything but sit there in weird light. And yeah, you may see it in one spot in one half of a scene, and then it moves to another spot. Ooh, that's creepy. But this movie gives the doll or the object just so much more. There's so much more terror involved in that thing because it can come at you. You know,
that's a really interesting point, especially in that, like, with the Annabelle films. Mild spoiler, I guess, for the Annabelle films, but you know, it's sort of a demon like operating Annabelle and using Annabelle as sort of like a puppet, if you will, for its own will. Whereas you're right, Jim, the Chucky character, you know, he's actually like the life force of an actual human being that was like voodoo magically transferred into this doll, and he starts to come alive. So, you know, even though he doesn't have a human body anymore, it's not some evil demon that's operating it from afar like a hand puppet. Like, it's actually like a human character in this doll. Granted, he's a fucking serial killer and nuts. But I agree. It's like, if you could take like a crazy serial killer like personality or brain and put it into a creepy fucking doll, that would be super, super scary. Way more than like, ooh, it's a ghost holding the doll.
Right. Especially this specific serial killer, because the other thing that really sticks to me about this character, like, if you take the doll aspect out of it, just like, you know, there's no doll in this movie anymore, and it's just a straight up slasher with Brad Dourif doing like the serial killer mannerisms that he put on here, it would still be compelling to a degree because it's a very interesting performance that he puts on. Like, the voice and the mannerisms and the fact that he does voodoo and like all of that, like, that's interesting stuff. Think about just the number of slasher movies that we've seen, not just the high profile ones, but like just the ones that sort of make it into the dollar bin. There are a ton of them that forget to make the villain interesting, that just think like, oh, well, it's something in the dark with a knife and that's enough. Charles Lee Ray, the actual killer in this, is super interesting. So when he's put into this doll, that's so much more exponentially cool. Like, this character is so much, in terms of just how he comes across on screen, his motivations, what he wants, like, these are things that we can pick up very easily without like a whole lot of exposition or narrative drops. There's not time for that. I know what this killer wants, why he wants it, and what he's going to try to do to get it. That's a lot to expect from a killer doll movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I know rather than a spoiler section, we've kind of turned this into a comparison of like Annabelle versus Child's Play, which I'm totally okay with.
Yeah.
But it makes it so much more interesting. You're right, Will, because this character is trying to get out of the doll. He wants to like possess another human, or like the little boy in the films, right? Because this doll body is like obviously not as cool as a human body, and that's so much more interesting than just a demon's operating a doll to like fuck with people. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's why they scare me so much more. Even now, as silly as they are, I mean, there's some scary shit. There's some jump scares. There's some very tense moments where the doll is like trying to stab Catherine Hicks in the face, and it's kind of like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen? As opposed to, I don't know, do I maybe believe more in creepy possessed dolls than I do ghosts? That's a hard question.
And this movie even does a very good job of giving us, I mean, like when the doll's doing like the stabbing and I'm gonna kill you, bitch stuff, like, that's entertaining because it's a doll. But there's one of my absolute favorite scenes in this movie is one of the longer tension builds. It's about at the halfway point, and it's this spot where the mother is walking around, and she's not sure if she believes all these stories about the doll, so she has him sitting down, and he's just sitting in the background the whole time as she walks across the room and kind of does some other things, and it's just sitting there staring at her, not moving. And then she looks at the box, and then she just sort of like is sort of casually looking at the box, and then the batteries fall out. That whole sequence, like when I think about my favorite movies in horror, or my favorite moments in horror, that's one of my favorites because it is so incredibly effective at getting across the emotion and tension that it's trying to get across.
Yeah, I mean, we've beat this point up, but like, I just find the terror in this doll, the devil doll. The Zuni doll in Trilogy of Terror. If anybody's seen Trilogy of Terror, that's pretty awesome. Just so much more scary than like what they do with the Annabelle doll. They just don't. It's a conduit basically, and the doll itself, while it may creep some people out who have like this fear of dolls or something, it's just not. It's just not very. For me, it's just not very terrifying.
It tries too hard, like, and that's a weird thing to say compared to like this franchise, but like I think that the Child's Play franchise knew exactly what it was doing at every step along the way. Like we have a couple of really great tense movies. We have a third one that sort of plays around with a different setting, kind of works, and then at that point they realize that the formula is getting stale, so it turns into this really weird, odd, like comedy thing, and it works because it veers so damn hard into it. Whereas the Annabelle movies, I feel like they try so hard to be cool, like they're actively putting on this like we don't want to come across as silly, so we're trying so hard for it to not be silly that it feels like they're not being genuine with like what their property is, which is a killer doll movie.
Yeah, that's also a really great point. So, all right. So just final opinions here, Jim. Annabelle movies or Child's Play movies so far?
Yeah, I would have to say Child's Play movies. They're just more fun to watch for me. The difference there is, neither one really scares me very much. So it's not a question of which one's a stronger horror, has stronger horror elements. It's more like which one I'm going to enjoy more. And that would be Child's Play.
Will, how about you, Will?
Same thing. And I know part of it's because I'm also very partial to this. Like, I told you the story about me being like terrified of this when I saw it when I was 6. What I didn't add on was by the time I was 7, I had a VHS copy of this. So when I think about the movies that I watched most as a child, like this movie is probably like in the top 5 like movies that I've watched the most like in my formative years. That maybe tells you quite a bit about me. But so I mean, there's obviously that part of it, and also the fact that like I love the concept of these things. I loved a year before it. There's a movie called Dolls that came out, which was not as good, but it's still like I enjoyed the premise of it. Even when a movie, that Robin Williams movie Toys came out and was supposed to be about like the toys and all that uprising and all the toy factory stuff, and it was weird and didn't always work. I was still super tuned into the idea of that movie because I loved the idea of something so simple, something in my playroom, being something that could cause terror or cause joy or cause excitement or all of these different things. So I'm tuned into this franchise. I love this franchise so much. Give me 18 more Chucky movies. I don't care how stupid they get. I'll probably still have fun with them.
Interesting. Well, maybe we'll have to circle back and get your thoughts on Cult of Chucky. Will, I don't know, Jim, if we're going to binge all the movies to get current for you. But
maybe over time.
And they're required to. So like, I feel like watch 1 and 2, Jim. Like, I don't feel like any. I would recommend very strongly watching 1 and 2 to just about anyone. Past that, like if you're wanting more, go for it. But that's about where I would stop recommending it to everyone.
Good point. All right. Well, I think I'm right in line with you guys. Child's Play movies, at least the first 2 and maybe 3, I think I like a lot more than the Annabelle films. I'm still trying to wrestle if that's because of nostalgia or just sheer outright other elements, I think, that make it stronger. I think it's a little column A, little column B, probably. But I'll own my nostalgia bias. That's okay. But guys, speaking of leaving nostalgia behind, we have a new movie to discuss. How do we feel about switching gears and shifting on over to Logan Lucky?
Let's do it.
Shift gears.
Well, you don't sound very excited.
You'll find out why shortly.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, this should be an interesting conversation. Hey, just a quick reminder. We're going to talk about Logan Lucky, spoiler-free, for probably 10 or 15 minutes. We'll give you fair warning before we go into our super spoilery review. So if you haven't seen Logan Lucky, you're not sure if you want to check it out in theaters or not, we'll give you some advice after Jim artfully puts the trailer in for you. Those of you who are listening on digital tape delay. Those of you who are listening live, you're just going to get some awkward silence for 10 or 15 seconds where you're like, is the video buffering? What's going on? Well, that's why. So you get to see how the sausage is made. So is what it is. In any event, here we go. Our discussion of Logan Lucky. All right, so Jim, I know this was a movie you were very excited to see, so makes sense for you to kind of kick this one off. Do us a favor, give us a little bit of setup for this film, because not everybody, I think, is familiar with what it is, what it's about, and then let us know, is it worth checking out movies, maybe checking out from like Redbox or Netflix or something, or would you skip it entirely?
Okay, this is the latest. Logan Lucky is the latest film from director Steven Soderbergh. And in the past, Soderbergh's given us the Oceans movies, right? As a director, Oceans 11, Oceans 12, Oceans 13. He's also given us movies like Contagion, which I really liked, and Magic Mike, which was a surprise, big surprise hit. So he's given us, different kind of movies. He also gave us one of the better TV movies I've seen, Behind the Candelabra, about he was a director of Behind the Candelabra with Matt Damon and Michael Douglas in the Liberace story. So along comes a movie called Logan Lucky, kind of out of nowhere a little bit. And let me give you what Logan Lucky is about. It's a heist movie, very similar to the Oceans movies, actually, just kind of in a different setting. It's kind of a dressed down version of the Ocean's 11 movies. I'll give you the synopsis here from IMDb. Two brothers attempt to pull off a heist during a NASCAR race in North Carolina. And that's basically the plot of this movie. It stars Adam Driver. We know Adam Driver, of course, from Star Wars movies, from Girls on TV.
I will finish what my grandfather began.
This was Channing Tatum in the lead role here. Riley Keough, Katie Holmes is in this one. What's his name? Daniel. Help me out.
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. That's right. Daniel Craig. 007 is in this one in a very different role from what you'll see him in James Bond. So yeah, this is a crazy movie. What drew me to this movie in the trailers was it seemed like very offbeat, very kind of lowbrow comedy. You have some very big talent in this movie, actors, kind of hamming it up a little bit. And it seemed like they have a little room to kind of really get into these kind of very kind of fringy characters, I guess you could say. We have Adam Driver and Channing Tatum playing the Jimmy and Clyde Logan, the two brothers who pull off this heist. In the end, it's hard for me to what to say about this movie. I enjoyed seeing it. I don't know if I'd recommend it to everybody. It's a fine movie. I don't think it wasn't the humor wasn't as sharp as I expected it to be. It kind of got caught in that area between wanting to be like a real serious heist movie and kind of a madcap comedy, and it really kind of fell in the middle there. And I don't think it worked. I actually think it worked better as kind of an offbeat heist movie than a comedy. So I think the comedy in here is kind of, you pull out of, not necessarily out of a lot of jokes, but just how offbeat these characters are. So I will say that I give this movie a soft pass for me. In other words, I liked it. I wouldn't recommend it strongly, but I wanted to love it and I didn't love it.
Wow. I'm really surprised to hear that.
Why?
Well, I mean, I think just maybe it's because every time we saw the trailer, and granted, the trailer isn't a barometer for the full experience, of course, but every time we saw the trailer, you would turn to me and you'd be like, oh man, I really want to see that. I can't wait. So I'm curious, did the trailer set like expectation for you that the movie just didn't realize, or
because you have a guy like Steven Soderbergh, who's a very well-known big name director, directing something that looked a little bit kind of, even though it was a heist movie, yes, but the tone of this movie seemed a little bit kind of stretching boundaries for him a little bit. So that's what got me interested in this. And I like Channing Tatum. I like Adam Driver. I like Daniel Craig. I like Katie Holmes. It had some good talent in it. And that's what drew me to the movie. I just wish the movie had been a little bit stronger, a little bit sharper. I was kind of expecting more comedy along the lines of something like Raising Arizona from the Coens. If you had seen that, that's kind of the flavor I was looking for in this, and this did not achieve that. It didn't quite achieve that farcical comedy level, even though it had farcical characters. It just didn't get there for me.
Well, now I don't feel so bad saying what I'm about to say then, Jim, knowing how you feel.
Well, you can say whatever you want. I mean, don't feel bad on my account just because I was looking forward to the movie.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like when you have not super great feelings about something, but you think someone else
where your feelings were.
Really loves it. Like I mean, a lot of people wouldn't want to like shit all over that person and their feelings, right? And certainly that's not my intention here. But Jim, on our way out of the movie, you asked me twice. You're like, "What did you think about this movie?"
You never answered,
and I kind of dodged the question a couple times because I was.
And I know what that means.
What? That I didn't like.
Go ahead. You're going to tell us what that means right now.
I mean, I am. Spoiler alert, I did not like this movie. I mentioned on Facebook earlier that this movie is sort of like Ocean's 11 meets like a Wes Anderson-ish like version of Hee Haw. Jim, I know you said that was maybe more Coen brothers. Maybe I'm not super familiar with the Coen brothers films, so that vibe didn't stick out to me, but I just noticed lots of things that are a little Wes Anderson-y to me in this film. Certain things with like symmetry and like how characters are like posed and framed on the screen. And there's just like this like quirky humor thing. And you know, humor for me is a mixed bag anyway. Like,
you're allergic to quirky humor.
Well,
Kind
I
of.
don't know that I mean, I like some quirky humor. It's not that like I never laugh at funny movies.
No, you laughed a few
It's
times
just
at this one.
Yeah, well, the only time I laughed was in reference to a pop culture thing that like everyone is incredibly frustrated with, and we'll mention it in spoilers maybe. But that was the only time I laughed this whole movie.
What twice?
Like,
But I'll tell you the other one.
well,
I'll tell you the other when we get to spoilers.
Okay. You'll have to remind me.
Laugh Watch 2017.
Laugh Watch. Brad's comedy Laugh Watch.
Right. So anyway, I feel like I'm not a great barometer for like, influencing potentially anyone's opinion on whether they should necessarily see this, because my funny bone is different than everyone else's. But I gotta tell you, like the quirky humor did not work for me here. I saw all these great actors that I love just acting so fucking stupid, like I didn't even want to watch them on the screen anymore. And I'm just sitting in my seat kind of stewing like, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, great Caesar's Ghost. There's so many other things I could be doing right now. But that said, I did start to get into the movie when it makes this shift away from sort of the main thrust of like the first 2/3 of the movie. And then we kind of get into like the surprise, there's still more movie aspect of it. And we'll talk more about it in spoilers. I found that way more interesting, and I found myself finally starting to get invested in these characters and what was going on. But then the movie was over, and it's like, oh, well, shit. Okay. So yeah, it's a mixed bag for me. This is not something that I would recommend you like rush out to go see in theaters. I would say, if you like the Coen brothers, I guess, or you like Wes Anderson, I was talking to our friend Sam from Denver today, and I know he's a big fan of both. This movie probably would fall very well in your sensibilities. It might be an enjoyable ride for you. But if you're not a big Coen brothers or Wes Anderson fan, or you didn't fucking like Hee Haw or NASCAR, this movie may not have a lot for you. So this is a hard pass for me. Will, what about you?
It's interesting you say that, because for me personally, I love the Coen brothers. I think they're some of the most compelling. I mean, as directors too, but like as writers, I think what they bring to the script and what they bring to the screen is just some of the best stuff that we've had over the last couple of decades. And Wes Anderson is a director who I think gets quirky right. Like he's able to do so he's able to infuse like his weird vision with a surprising amount of heart that comes through the more and more you invest themselves in these characters. I like those directors, but I don't like Steven Soderbergh as a director, and so that's what sinks it for me. And that's that's hard to say, because I know there are a lot of people who really get down on his stuff, and I think that that's great. Like if you're the type of person that loves, you mentioned like Contagion or Side Effects or the first Magic Mike or any of those movies, like awesome. I'm glad. And there's so many people that are out there. Like my feed is just full of people that are absolutely raving about this movie. Like, 4.5, 5 stars. And I think that's awesome. Like, I don't want to take anything away from you, but I actively dislike this movie. The reason for it is I think Soderbergh does a couple of things that don't work very well for me. One, like Jim, you mentioned like the Coen connection. I feel like it's very Coen light. Like he's borrowing from some of those tropes and from that playbook, but he's not doing it with the sincerity or with the understanding of how to work those characters into a comedic vehicle, pun intended. Two, I don't think he's great at writing comedy. Like I think that the jokes for the most part did not land for me. I felt like they were very stale in a lot of places. I think the actors did a great job. I don't want to take anything away from any of them. I thought Riley Keough continues to be like one of the most impressive people sort of her age and generation right now. I just love seeing her in things. We saw her earlier in It Comes at Night, and she was in American Honey and Mad Max Fury Road, and this sweet little lesbian drama called Love Song. She's a great actress, and she was really solid in this. I liked her, but I don't like the material that they had to work with. It just felt so flat. And probably the biggest killer for me was I can overlook the comedy in a heist movie if the heist elements themselves are interesting. And that's why I can sometimes give a pass to like the Ocean's movies. I don't, the humor in those doesn't work for me, but I like convoluted heist movies. So I should be able to sink my teeth into just how convoluted this is. But this really felt like, this analogy may only work for some people, but bear with me. Like when you plug in a brand new video game and you know how it like defaults the difficulty to normal and you can like pick hard or very hard, but then you can like wimp out and go all the way up to like easy. And when you do that, like you can soar right through it. The character, like the monsters barely touch you, you know, like you're not going to die. It's like there's no difficulty whatsoever. It felt like the challenge that these characters faced was placed on the easy mode. I never felt like these characters were in any risk. I never felt like, I always felt like they were the smartest characters in the world. Like, to like, they were able to, like, they had things going, like these were like mastermind characters, who were able to get out of any situation without any difficulty, without any challenge. And it was kind of played off as kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, fun. Look what just happened. But to me, it sort of shoots what could have been the heart of this film in the foot. These are not like, these are a bunch of blue collar people who are kind of getting by with sort of like as much ingenuity and sort of like pluck as they can. I wanted to see them face more difficulties. I wanted to see their plan like go awry more. I wanted to see them really have to struggle to make things happen. This movie was just a cakewalk. I never felt that these characters were in danger. And in a heist movie, I think that's a cardinal sin. So do I say to pass on this movie? I don't know if I can say that, only because I feel like I'm an outlier. I feel like any Soderbergh movie I'm probably going to be down on. And so I'm the worst judge of these. Like the next 3 movies I watch of his, I will probably come in here with a similar review. And so people that like his movies, who love the Ocean's movies, that liked Contagion or whatever, like, see this movie, fine, go for it. But just for me, this was such a kind of a waste of my evening.
Oh, sorry. Well, I want to be clear. When I say soft pass, I'm giving the movie a soft pass, meaning a soft recommendation. I want to be clear on that.
Wait,
oh, okay.
I give it a soft recommendation is what I meant.
Oh,
I give the movie a pass.
Like,
I don't mean pass on the movie. I mean, I give the movie a soft pass.
Oh, well, then I take back what I said earlier. Then I
you can't take it back. You cannot take it back.
I thought you were saying you were giving it like this is a soft like don't go see it. Pass
I give it a soft recommend. Is what
I get you. I get you. You know,
like, I liked it enough, but I wish it was better.
You're giving it a pass, like you're cutting it.
Yeah. That's what I meant. So I will promise to be clearer on the next movie review. But
precision of language. Jim.
I know. Hey, I wanted to talk about a point like about your levels and kind of the heist in this movie, and I think the way the movie was laid out was that these people came off as very ordinary people who were doing something extraordinary. And yes, I didn't feel a lot of tension because I almost felt like these people were had divine luck or just dumb luck going for them at every turn. And they lucked into kind of everything that happened, as dumb as it was and as dumb as it seemed. I bought into that, and I was like, okay, so these are good-hearted people. You know, they're doing this for the right reasons. They're not out to hurt anybody. And they're getting some dumb luck, and it's kind of humorous to see how lucky they can be in certain situations. The movie's called Logan Lucky. But then, Brad, as you mentioned, to agree with you, at the 2/3 point of the movie, that's when kind of the level got ratcheted up. Like what we weren't seeing all along, and maybe we should have had some seeds planted. And we'll get into spoilers in a minute, but what we weren't seeing all along, you're finding out, maybe these guys weren't as dumb as they seemed, or at least one of them wasn't. So I kind of like that twist in the movie. I really didn't see that coming, to be honest. And it kind of surprised me. And then I'm like, I was actually one of the guys, you know, I was kind of like one of the level 1 guys trying to understand a level 5 movie. And I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened? Did they say that they did this? You know, we'll get into it.
Well, I think now is as good a time as any to go into spoilers for this film. So we're just going to go ahead and make that jump to our spoiler section. If you haven't seen Logan Lucky yet, and you value your virginal innocence when it comes to NASCAR heists and hee-haw. Now is your time to step away for 10 or 15 minutes and then come on back and join us for some plugs. I've awkwardly stalled enough. Jim, got a question for you. Earlier you said I laughed twice. Spoilers are officially fair game. Was the second time the Ocean 7-Eleven reference?
No, the second time was Adam Driver's new prosthetic arm. You got a kick out of that when you first saw it.
Oh, only because I was thinking of Big Brother, not because the movie.
I was thinking of Kylo Ren, actually. Like it looked all kind of like Death Star-ish almost.
Oh.
It looked very Star Warsy, and I'm like, I wonder if that was like a tip of the hat to Star Wars a little bit.
I was thinking of Cody from Big Brother, how they do this sound effect, like when he turns his head, it's like, like he's a robot, and like when Adam Driver reaches out with his robo claw and
grab the napkin.
In my head, I heard like. Anyway, that's where that came from. Yeah. It wasn't because it was funny in the movie sense.
I thought it was funny because I thought it might have been an almost kind of wink at his character in Star Wars a little bit.
But his character has both arms.
I know, but it just looked very futuristic.
I could really argue my way into into the case for it being an homage, just because, spoilers for the original Star Wars franchise, like people get their like left arm chopped off, like, or is it the right? We get characters who get their arm chopped off like fairly regularly in that franchise. Yeah. So, but I am much more interested in this movie thinking of it as a part of the Star Wars extended universe, and maybe thinking that all of this dumb luck is all of the characters, like maybe they're all Force sensitive.
That must be it. Yeah.
I mentioned the difficulty level, and I think for me, like, part of that was the most threat that these characters ever face is at one point two sets of security guards are walking down, and they're kind of walking in the general area of them, but whenever any of the characters walk out, they're just like, what are you doing here? Oh, I was just supposed to be here. Oh, okay, go ahead and pass. Like it was like they were able to super easily explain their way past everything. And to me, Jim, to your point about like, this, like they kept relying on sort of like dumb luck. Right. I wanted to see, if you're going to go that route, and I think that's certainly a route to go, like these characters just kind of stumbling into success. Like, I think it's more compelling if stuff starts to go wrong and then they like sort of dumb luck their way out of that, as opposed to just kind of constantly kind of lucking upwards. Like maybe get one of them apprehended by a security guard and in the back of one of the cars, and then something like weird happens. Like there's even some luck elements that didn't even feel like they were smartly written. Like I think a good heist movie, like all of the elements are very sharp and very smart and work to kind of create this puzzle that when you see all the pieces laid out, it's like, oh my gosh, Kaiser Sose. Instead, what we got here was we just got some unrelated scenes that sort of popped up, would pay off in some very minor way, and wouldn't happen again. For example, the Seth MacFarlane character. We had a long setup with him at the very beginning, which was only there to set up the fact that he didn't like these guys, and later on would identify them positively, and then it amounted to absolutely nothing. Like not a thing at all, because of this other unrelated scene with this car racer who's drinking an energy drink. That wasn't sharp for me. It felt like an afterthought. It felt like it was sort of like, we want to kind of explain this away. Maybe it was because of this. Like, it feels like the type of thing that's added to the script late in the game.
I could agree with you on. I think that whole Seth MacFarlane character stuff could have been done way differently. Maybe even not had such a strong. He kind of played that character off a little too strong for me, almost like a caricature. Where the other characters, you could say that they were caricatures of like, Southern Hicks or whatever. But he was like way over the top, like caricature, and didn't really fit in to me to the rest of the movie. But I agree with you. I think that part was dumb. But one thing I liked about this movie, the heist part, is a lot of these heist movies will have this big meeting where they get everybody together at the beginning, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and then at 6:45 we're gonna hit this switch, and then you're gonna bust into the fence, and blah blah blah. They didn't really do that in this movie. So as it's unfolding, you're like, I don't know. You're like, what's going to happen next? Because I don't know how they're going to pull this off. I don't know how they're going to get out of it. And then a few things do go wrong, but not like majorly wrong, like a stuck fence or security guards that come walking down that happen to be even dumber than the dumb guys doing the heist, which was, again, dumb luck. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that I really liked. And then to find out in the third act that the movie really is kind of pulling a con on the audience because they're not really giving them all the information that, hey, Channing Tatum kind of had this all laid out. He figured by, they figured by cutting off all of the credit card machines, right? That all the transactions would have to be by cash, and therefore it's not really accountable very much. So the track doesn't really know how much they made. They're just going to estimate it. So he can probably skim a lot of that money off and get away with it. And that's exactly what he did. And the other one thing that I really liked about this movie, and then I'll shut up, is there was an actual moment in this movie that like really got me emotional. Like, and that came out of left field. There was kind of this B story about Channing Tatum as a dad and the time with his daughter and custody, and he's trying to get to this beauty pageant on time. It was
the John Denver song, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they were talking about it earlier, and I thought that was a good throwback, to it was a very unexpected moment for me. I didn't know I thought she was just going to come out, do her umbrella bit, and win the pageant. Yay! That's kind of what the movie's setting you up for, and then you have this really quiet, like emotional moment in the movie, and I thought that was a good shift of tone, kind of in the movie, unexpected, and those are the ones that really get me.
I'm glad that you appreciated that moment so much, babe. I think it's awesome that it had that effect on you. No, seriously. I mean, that moment didn't work for me that way, but I mean, I think, maybe some of that is like you have a daughter and you went through that process of like her growing up and all that. And there's probably some emotional connection there. For me, I thought it was pretty schmarmy and I was rolling my eyes the whole time. But like, now that I know you were having this emotional moment, like a foot away from me, well, I feel bad. Like, I feel like, maybe I missed something.
Well, it was interesting at the beginning of the movie, they're talking, they're having a father-daughter moment, and there's a song playing on the radio, and they're talking about a song, the writing of a song. And you think it's the song you're hearing on the radio, but it's not. It's the other John Denver song, which is Take Me Home Country Roads, West Virginia, which is where they lived. And so that's what gave it a little more emotional resonance for me.
And I think that's totally fair. Like, I'm with Brad in that, like, it felt artificial to me, but I think that I would never want to take that, like, the sincerity of that moment away from anyone. Like, right. If you connected and resonated with that, I think that's 100% fair. We all have different buttons that connect with us and that make us feel the things that we feel. And again, like, this one's hard because I am not the target audience for this movie. This director does not make the types of movies that I enjoy watching. So I'm already kind of at a disadvantage in trying to connect with them, and I would love to be proven wrong. I went into this one like actually liking the cast enough that I thought that maybe it would, but again, like, if you connected with this, like, that's awesome. And the same to anyone that's listening right now. Like, if you loved this movie, like, don't let the fact that, I guess Brad and I are kind of shitting on it a little bit, like, don't let that discourage you at all. And, like,
yeah, for sure.
Do not let my enjoyment of a movie, squelch your criticism of it too, because, it's all fair from our perspectives. And that's what we do, right? We don't always agree on movies, and that's good. And sometimes it's better when there's criticism and then somebody can defend, or vice versa.
I agree, unless it's Pacific Rim, where we're having like a throwdown smackdown.
Wait till that movie comes out.
Oh, wait till Pacific Rim 2. Hey, but I give Pacific Rim 2 when it comes out the same shake I give everything. If it's shit, it's shit.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't get any bonuses from the first one. Adam Driver was good in this. He was fine in it. I really liked, I mean, he was maybe a little over the top, but I think it worked here. I liked Daniel Craig. I think he was, he had the most scene-stealing moments for me. And he was the perfect amount of over the top on this. Like, he was believable enough as a real character, but also weird enough that he got some fun lines, some fun moments, some interesting character quirks. Going back to that,
Will, I gotta ask you on that point real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think Daniel Craig was channeling Leslie Jordan for this performance at all?
So much so. You know what's great? Whether I actually thought that exact same thought.
Nice.
That exact same thought went through my head. Like, I don't know if he was channeling him, but he was doing that same accent. So I'm glad that wasn't just me. Yeah, the more and more I think about the Seth MacFarlane character, he almost feels more like a character from like Talladega Nights than he does from the rest of the movie,
exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
He stands out. He's, you know, and I like MacFarlane okay in certain lanes, but oof, this was not a good one for him.
He used to be funny, you know.
Yeah, he's starting to overstay his welcome.
It was great. I kind of jumped, straightened up a little bit. It was good to see Dwight Yoakam get a little spot in this movie. I loved him. I mean, I like to see him in movies. I know he's a musician primarily, but he does delve into movies a little bit, as we saw in Sling Blade, and he's been in some others. But it was good to see him here. And did you not love that Game of Thrones?
Yes, let's talk about that for a second.
That was
I know we got to wrap here in a little bit, but you know, so the prisoners are like having a riot, and one of their demands is the new Game of Thrones novels, because before they went into the prison, they were under the impression George R.R. Martin was going to like have these novels done by then, right?
Right.
And of course, the warden's like, "I'm really sorry, The Winds of Winter isn't out yet, and A Dream of Spring," like, you know. And they're like, "Oh, we don't fucking believe you. The new guy that came in was talking about shit that didn't happen in the books yet, so they must be out." And the warden's like, "No, it happened on the TV show, like the blonde chick with the tits, like she's from TV." And that was the only thing that made me laugh out of the whole movie.
I agree. Like, I actively laughed at that one. It was funny. It was like, that was actually it was a good joke that was written well, presented well, executed well all the way through. That was really cool. But
except it's going to age the fuck out of this movie.
Yeah, but even that's okay, because at least it's like, yeah, that's true. Like, you know, coming back 20 years from now, I don't think people are going to like kind of like feel that whole like, come on, when's the next one coming out?
When
like,
they watch that classic. When they watch the classic Logan Lucky movie.
But that's the thing, like, you know, like it's you can either make a movie for all time, or you can make a movie for the now, and both are fine as long as you do them well. That's a good joke for the now, and it lands.
And think of it this way: in 20 years, we're not going to be using money anyway, so people aren't going to be able to relate to like stealing cash. Like, everything's going to be electronic, like chip-based, you know, secure point-to-point transactions.
Why are they fucking around with that green paper? That's bullshit.
I've been told by science fiction that we're gonna switch to credits instead of dollars for the longest time. I long for that future where I have a credit chip in my arm that I use to pay for things.
Bitcoin.
Until that credit chip becomes sentient, Will, and takes over your body, and you become a cyborg like mutant that goes on a killing rampage.
Look, so I know that I'm not gonna live forever. I'm not going to live forever. That is the blessing and the curse of humanity. That is what we are put on this mortal coil to do: to live, to breathe, and to die. So I know that I am not immortal. So if I go out as a killing cyborg machine, like set on destruction, there are worse ways to go. Like, that sounds pretty fucking epic.
Oh, goodness. Hey, before we move into some plugs, I just wanted to circle back to something JP said in the chat. JP said, frankly, it would be boring as fuck if you boys agreed every single time on everything. JP, it's actually good to hear that validation coming from you, one of our listeners, because yeah, sometimes it's a love fest on some of these movies. We're like, oh my gosh, Moonlight was so amazing, and it is. But I agree, it's so much more interesting sometimes when the different opinions maybe sometimes clash a little bit. So glad that you appreciate that. I don't know if we'll get into like killer cyborg throwdown fights, guys, but
we could. Stay tuned. Movie Bears Podcast year 10.
I could like rubber band a can opener to the end of my hand or something, like pretend to be a a cyborg. Anyway, hey guys, let's go ahead and wrap up with some brief plugs here. I want to give some love to something. I know it's not a movie technically, but it's like a 10-part movie, maybe. I want to give some love to Marvel's The Defenders, which came out on Netflix just last Friday. I've only had a chance to watch a couple episodes so far, but I've loved Jessica Jones, Daredevil. Luke Cage has become one of my favorite shows ever, and I thought that it was not going to be that at all. I loved it. Iron Fist I thought was fairly plotting and terrible, but I'm really, really digging The Defenders so far. So even if you haven't seen Iron Fist yet, the basic Iron gist is he's a dude that does kung fu, his fist lights up. That's all you got to know, really. I mean, I think that's all. But it's really well shot. It's very well directed. I think they do some interesting things with kind of how the narrative weaves in and out around the characters and ends up like interconnecting them. So, you know, not only is it great from the standpoint of like loving these different characters, and oh my God, I'm so glad to see Jessica Jones back in action. But it does some really cool stylistic stuff with sort of its tone and its feel. So I think it's kind of a cinematic experience just broken into parts. So if you were a fan of any of those shows, definitely check out Marvel's The Defenders on Netflix. Will, what you got?
I was totally expecting to come in here and do a plug for Ingrid Goes West, which is out this weekend, and it's good. I liked it, whatever. But I ended up seeing another movie over the weekend that I liked way better, and so I'm shifting my plug over to it. It's A24's latest film, and it's called Good Time. Good Time is this very lo-fi movie starring Robert Pattinson, you know, Edward from the Twilight movies, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. Basically, the Robert Pattinson character is this like bank robber who does this crime with his brother who has some like mental handicaps, and the brother gets taken into custody, and so over the course of the night, and with kind of the law coming around him, the Robert Pattinson character starts doing some desperate things to try to get the money to get his brother out. And it is tense from start to finish. It is incredibly acted. Like, this is one of my favorite performances of the year, and I was joking about it on Twitter or on Facebook earlier, but I can now very clearly say that as of 2017, Kristen Stewart in Personal Shopper and Robert Pattinson for Good Time, you know, the Twilight actors, have turned in two of the best performances of the year. It is stellar what he does in this very lo-fi, high-stakes crime movie. It's called Good Time. It's in limited release right now, and it is so fucking good.
Yeah, well, it's a movie I'm curious about. I've heard a lot about the Safdie brothers and their films, and one of the first ones that I did was probably their previous one from 2014, and I think it was at South by, called Heaven Knows What. I don't know if you saw it with me, or Brad, you saw it with me.
I think we saw that one together.
But it was really dark, gritty. I don't know if I quite grasped that movie, or maybe didn't fully appreciate it as much. So I'm going to give Good Time a shot. And see what it's like, but yeah, I've heard good things about it, so I'm curious.
If it helps, Jim, I wasn't super big on Heaven Knows What either. Like, I thought it was fine, but it was a little plotting. Good Time is like it trucks along.
Okay, good. Good deal.
Hey, we have a comment from Steve in the chat who says, a Twilight reference on Eclipse Day. Well played, Will. Well played.
Huh. That works out very, very well. I wish I had planned something better for that.
Midday Twilight.
Oh, goodness. Hey, Jim, what have you got this week for plugs?
Let's see. I went back to 2009. I don't know. I was looking for movies to watch last weekend or last week during the week. And I ended up going back to a Bobcat Goldthwait. I don't know if you guys remember Bobcat Goldthwait as a comedian, and a personality, but he also makes movies, and he's made quite a few movies. He made God Bless America, I think, was one of his movies. I went back and watched World's Greatest Dad. just from 2009. This one stars Robin Williams before, the late Robin Williams, who we really miss. And this is a really great movie. It's really dark. It's got some comedy in it. And it's about a dad and his son. They don't connect at all. His son is kind of a fucking asshole. And Robin Williams is this kind of schleppy teacher who's depressed. And he's trying to figure out, what's going on in life. And I'm not going to spoil anymore, but this one's free on Netflix, by the way. If you have Netflix, go check out World's Greatest Dad. Great performance by Robin Williams. Great supporting cast. And I just love the way this movie's written. It's a great balance of like dark comedy and some much darker drama. But World's Greatest Dad.
It's a really good pick, Jim. Like that's when Robin Williams died. Gosh, it's been a few years now.
Yeah.
Like you have when someone passes, like there's this tendency to like try to revisit their work, because they're top of mind. And this was the first one I revisited just because of like just how intense it is, and also just how good a performance it is. It's one that never fails to just like connect. So yeah, really good.
It's a really good. It's a little tough to watch because the character Robin Williams plays has depression in this movie, and we know what led to Robin Williams' death being depression, and you're like, oh my god, this is really tough.
It's very on the nose, like in some ways, but it's so well realized and so well executed, and it's a hard watch, but it's a rewarding watch, I think.
Yeah, did you say it's on the nose because of Robin Williams and Patch Adams?
It is on the red bulbous nose.
Oh goodness! Hey Jim, sorry I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say Bobcat Goldthwait has made some kind of crazy movies. He's kind of lives on the edge of filmmaking, storytelling as well. But this is probably, I think, the best movie that I've seen him do so far.
Awesome. Very good. Well, glad to hear that. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We'll figure out what the fuck we're doing for next week at some point soon, I'm sure. But real quick, before we say goodbye to everyone officially, Jim, where can people find you online if they want to chit-chat movies with you?
You can find me on Facebook at Jim, under my name, Jim Pugliafico, or you can tweet me or at me or private message me on Twitter at JJP Out West, Twitter.
All right. Awesome. Will, how about you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Whatever Cove. You can find me on Facebook. My name is William Lindis. Just send me a message if you add me there, just so I know who you are. I'm on Letterboxd, which is my favorite place to track and talk about movies. Just search for my name there. So yeah, looking forward to connecting with you.
All right. Awesome. And for me, you can find me on the Twitters, all of them, at iBradPro. Sorry, that was a Logan Lucky reference. You can also find me on Facebook under Brad Harris. I'm the Brad Harris who probably has Bear Chub and Chaser friends in common with you. The other Brad Harris is like a gun nut from Nebraska or something. So I'm not him, I promise. But like Will, send me a message first if you don't mind, just so I know who you are. Some of you guys have been doing that recently, which is great because sometimes people will like add me on Facebook and I'm like, he is hot AF. Yes, I will hit accept. And then it's like, oh, yeah, he's totally a bot or he's totally a crazy nut job. And I'm like, defriend. So send me that message first. Appreciate that. Want to just remind you guys real quick, if you like the show, if you enjoy interacting with us live, if you enjoy getting notifications when the show comes out on YouTube, definitely remember, go to the Movie Bears Podcast YouTube page and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll get notifications when we're going live. We tend to go live at the same time every week, but you may not always be at your computer. Sometimes we do special shows. We've got cool information coming out about the show. So subscribing is a really great way to make sure you're getting all the latest and greatest that we're coming out with. I'm rambling. I know it's the end of the night. Guys, I love doing this with you so much. I don't want to say goodbye. I don't want to hit that stop broadcast button. But
I don't want to end the podcast.
We got pets to feed. Like they're gonna start like barking and meowing at us, and just wondering like, how come daddies won't stop talking about movies? So it's like I would love to do like a 24-hour movie review-a-thon with you guys, but yeah, we got babies to take care of.
We might end up doing that at Fantastic Festival.
Well, there you go.
Oh,
definitely,
God.
we're all going to be there in less than a month at this point. Man, that's exciting.
We got to figure out our game plan for that.
Definitely, for sure. We'll sit down and we'll like Minority Report style, like map it out on holographic screens and like shift one movie into column A, one to B. We'll figure it out. Last thing I just want to say is a great big thank you to everyone who joined us in the live chat tonight. Steve and Ryan and JP Wendell and everybody else who was with us throughout the night.
Kevin Smith.
Great hanging out with you guys. Bobby Miller, Weeping Jay. I don't think that's the real Kevin Smith because he's only got like 17 subscribers on YouTube. And he has a picture of a pond for his like user channel page, whatever. So, you know, but whatever.
He used to be a dragon, but now he's just a pond.
Oh, goodness. In any event, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us and for tuning in. We love you guys. We'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.